Here's a preview of the Traveler's Guide to Factions.
Commonwealth Records started out collecting and preserving the folk art and the folk music of the world around them. So Commonwealth Records is a faction of bards and scholars and historians that are dedicated to exploring every culture they can come across.
The Soul Society. This is a group that represents seekers of untold lore. This faction is a bunch of academics. They're sleuths, they're amateur adventurers, archaeologists of sorts.
The Ember Weavers are that mix between super technological group and super magic. They are very much a group that represents the merging of those two things with a kind of industrial twist.
The Hands of Providence are a conclave of Aasimar prophets, soothsayers, and other fortune tellers and seers that all share a common vision for the future.
This is the Thunder Swarm. They're not an organized military. They're not technically religious zealots because they're there to help. But when good people are in need of help, the God of Tempest has a way of bringing in the storm that's going to wash evil clear.
The Order of the Ivory Compass is a quasi-military organization of buccaneers and privateers and basically merchant marines. They started as a group that was meant to protect shipments, definitely a group that has maybe forgotten its roots on some level.
The Guardians of the Grave are a cadre of viciously dedicated undead hunters that seek out and destroy any kind of undead that exists. The line between life and death should never be broken, and they kill all undead.
This is the Outriders League, a league of professional soldiers that are specifically involved in scouting, pathfinding, trailblazing, and espionage.
The Wharfman Weft is a multiverse spanning organization of spies and fixers run by an incredibly ancient hag. It could be any form of Baba Yaga type dealmaker, Ursula from The Little Mermaid, just to go in another direction.
Time. It's a funny thing. Cities rise, nations fall, powers emerge from the chaos in unexpected ways. And yet, the dance continues. Hour after hour, until, what was it? The last syllable of recorded time. The eternal question remains. Where will you stand when these factions emerge?
Here's a preview of the Traveler's Guide to Factions.
Commonwealth Records started out collecting and preserving the folk art and the folk music of the world around them. So Commonwealth Records is a faction of bards and scholars and historians that are dedicated to exploring every culture they can come across.
The Soul Society. This is a group that represents seekers of untold lore. This faction is a bunch of academics. They're sleuths. They're amateur adventurers, archaeologists of sorts.
The Ember Weavers are that mix between super technological group and super magic. They are very much a group that represents the merging of those two things with a kind of industrial twist.
The Hands of Providence are a conclave of Asimar, prophets, soothsayers, and other fortune tellers and seers that all share a common vision for the future.
This is the Thunder Swarm. They're not an organized military. They're not technically religious zealots because they're there to help. But when good people are in need of help, the God of Tempest has a way of bringing in the storm that's going to wash evil clear.
The Order of the Ivory Compass is a quasi-military organization of buccaneers and privateers and basically merchant marines. They started as a group that was meant to protect shipments. Definitely a group that has maybe forgotten its roots on some level. How about if I take myself off mute? You guys can probably hear me better if I talk. Then how about that?
That
God,
does really help.
Yeah.
There's your
I'm not sure what happened there. I
voice.
was supposed to play the video and then the video stopped. I don't know what happened there, but that's
It did. It just boop quit.
just boop, quit. Yeah, I don't know. But that's that's the way things go, right? So how you guys doing tonight?
Welcome to
okay.
live.
Are we actually
I know,
live
right?
already?
Well, yeah.
Are,
Yeah.
are we live right now? So I
We
shouldn't
are
say anything
actually
terrible
live,
or
yeah, I'm gonna-
embarrassing.
No, yep, we are.
I mean, you can say
good
things,
as.
yeah,
Yeah,
more
no
embarrassing
terrible.
than usual, right? So
Yeah. Hey, we
So-
are who we are.
So yeah, we are who we are, exactly. Glenn, you are who you are, and that's why we love you. Like that's
Why does that sound?
just
why
so
does that sound
everybody out there
offensive?
listening, be aware.
Check it out.
No, not offensive. No. Oh, I like that.
No,
That's nice.
no, I
That's
swear
nice.
it's not.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you been able to bring it up a little bit, so like the title was like right around your head, like that would have been cool. That's
That'd have been perfect. That would imply a little more technical skill than I currently have, but I will be working on that.
nice. Yeah, I mean, we haven't been live in a really long time, so it's nice to kind of get back and do another live show. It's been I think last time we did a live show that was probably right around the beginning of the year with one of the when the OGL kerfluffle was happening. It's been a while since we've been a live show. So
I think we did one late spring.
It has
It
definitely
might
been a
be.
while.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a while. I mean,
Yeah, I
y'all said
thought we
live,
had
and I
one
was like,
more
wait a
late
minute.
spring, but
It is
I mean,
entirely
I gotta like wear
possible.
pants and stuff.
I mean, we only see you from the waist up, Glenn. So I mean, that's again, you are who you are. We
Except
we
for
don't
that one
expect-
time when I stood up.
well,
yeah, that is true.
self-control.
So take a quick moment to say
All
hi
right.
to Peter out in the audience that's listening. Peter, if I remember correctly, I think I remember your name. I think you are one of our backers, actually. Yes,
Hi, Peter.
backer number 30, actually.
Peter.
So nice to see you. Welcome. I'm not sure if you are a fan of the show or anything, but we are the crew from Tabletop Journeys. I'm Josh. That's Glenn. This is Lou and Nico. Yeah, nice to have you. Appreciate you back in the campaign. Yeah,
Very much.
obviously, as we're going through here, if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the comments. We're happy to go ahead and talk about. We're happy to talk about pretty much anything, really. At the end of the day, like we've been known to off on various tangents for a variety of reasons. But if you have any questions about the upcoming book, about the Kickstarter campaign, about anything, Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. No, the D&D Lorecast. So they were awesome. I hadn't even heard that the show had come out yet, so that's cool. Glad that that you heard us. Yeah, Mary and Sergio are awesome. It was a fantastic conversation. It was one of those
I was
conversations.
gonna say that was an amazing interview. Yeah, I had so much fun.
Yeah.
On the show. Sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
yeah.
jump back.
Yeah, no, totally. And like, again, like one of the coolest experiences of my life, like I said, where it's like I have books with my name on them on my shelf, but having somebody else with a book with my name in it on their shelf is like, and for them to say, oh yeah, no, I know that book. I read that all the time. It's like,
Yeah, and he pulls it right down. That was pretty cool.
kind of,
We've
one
got
of the
an
coolest things.
adventure in that book.
Yeah, it was.
We do, exactly. Yeah,
It was really something special. I mean, I ran that adventure like 4 days before we did that interview. So I put it in front of people, and not people that I knew, not even folks from my regular game store. I went to a different state to a convention, just ran the game that we wrote for those folks, and it was amazing. My youngest son was with us as well, but he had actually never played the adventure before, so this was definitely an experience. And the comments that Sergio made about the book in general, which was great because we worked with an amazing team at Splinterverse, and our adventure in specific, I think, was just great. Like, it just really warmed me and jazzed me up for the work that's ahead, which is this book. The Factions book has we are so far into it and doing really well with it, but there's still work to be done. And that interview was one of those things that gives me that energy. Plus the backers that have already come in, getting to 50% in just about 24 hours, give or take a few minutes there, was amazing for a day one start to this campaign.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, talking with them on D&D Lorecast, it was just so fantastic to be on a show with two people who so clearly got what we're talking about, what we are about, in terms of, because we don't just say story first. Like, everything that we do that goes into what we're doing has lore, has story, and the fact that they got it so well was really awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the things that I've enjoyed so far is, because kind of the way that we do our Kickstarters, we don't want to have like a long development process after the Kickstarter is done. We want to be able to go ahead and get product into the people that helped support us to make this product. We want to get it into their hands as soon as possible, either digitally or otherwise. And so we're in the middle of writing all these factions now, and with the kind of internal goal to go ahead and be done all 9 of them, kind of at least in rough format, by the end of the campaign, towards the end of October. And that's been kind of the coolest thing, is that they all kind of started with just like a 1-paragraph, like 3-sentence blurb about like, what is this faction? And I think that all three of us kind of internally knew that all these factions were more than just that 3-paragraph, but that was just kind of like the initial pitch. And it's been a lot of fun sort of going through and thinking through all the stories that are involved with these factions, and kind of, and I've been thinking too about kind of like how our even kind of now like faction relations, right? So I've got a couple of questions that to kind of toss out to go ahead and talk on. Some of them have come from people that have listened or have kind of like heard about the campaign and trying to figure out what they whether they want to back it or not. So, hey Morgan, how you doing tonight? So that's Morgan, our wonderful social media coordinator for this campaign. His help was invaluable on our last campaign, and we were very happy that he was excited to go ahead and work with us on this one too. So always nice to see Morgan out there. Yeah, it's this is a team effort. There is a big team. Like, we get to go ahead and be the pretty faces at the front and get our names on the front of the book, but there is a big team of people that okay, well, 2 pretty faces and a Glenn that get to be on the front of the book.
That's more like it.
Ow.
Hey, there's never mind. I'm not going to go there. We're going to try to keep the show PG-13. I know we're live.
We're live, Josh. I'm the one that you're supposed to have to watch, not you.
Yeah. But it is a team effort, and really any campaign like this and any product like this has got just an army of folks behind us that really help us do all the things that need to be done for a Kickstarter campaign. And Morgan has just been invaluable in that. So really glad to see him tonight. So.
Right? It'd be a whole lot harder to find time to do the writing if you were slaves to the social media accounts. And
I mean, I'm looking forward to strapping in tomorrow for self promo Saturday. You know, I'm gonna be out there talking to folks about the stuff that they're doing. So that's half of what we love about this gig is being able to talk to awesome people about the awesome things that they do. And then once or twice a year, we get to go out and say, hey, we're doing this awesome thing too. Can we talk about it? But really, we love everyone's stories too about what they're doing cool. So many cool things out there in the tabletop role-playing game creative space, and just kind of the ability to talk to other creators about what they're doing and everything. It's really a hoot. So I'm really looking forward to that. Even if it means I'm, strapped into Twitter and Blue Sky for 2 hours tomorrow morning. So yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You're exactly right. You got to give to get, right? So we're all supporting each other.
Exactly.
Rising tide and boats and all that. Yeah. So, so anyway, as we were talking about like kind of like stories and everything like that, I had a couple of questions that that have kind of been floating around through various people that have been talking about the campaign and stuff that I thought that we could kind of riff on tonight. You're absolutely right, Peter. I also back a ton of campaigns, and the fact that it takes a village, like it's kind of like podcasting action. I think we may have said this on Marion's and Sergio's show. Mr. Rideout, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
I think we may have mentioned this on the show with Mary and Sergio, is that everyone thinks, oh, let's just go ahead and do a podcast. And nobody thinks about how hard doing a podcast actually is and the amount of time that it takes until they
All
get
of it
into
takes
it.
more work than you think it's gonna.
It all takes more work, and it is like I was saying somewhere else, it is a labor of love, emphasis on the labor and emphasis on the love. So, it is, it's all fun and games, but cool. All right. So we've got some folks watching in here. I have some questions that I want to go ahead and toss out there. And this is the audience participation part of the show. Because one of the things that we have been touting about this book is that this book is the factions are going to be largely system agnostic. So
Right.
they can be played at any time, any campaign, any system. You can bring these factions wherever and whatever you're playing. And you can, and you can use them. The lore is system agnostic. You can use it wherever. And so I was talking to people about what that means and whether or not we actually mean it. And one of the games that they had tossed out was a game called The Warrens, which is a game where you play rabbits. Like not even like Rabbitkin like you get in the Feywild book from Wizards of the Coast there, but true and proper rabbits. And so I wanted to get I had some thoughts on which factions. Exactly right. I had some thoughts on which factions I thought kind of best suited themselves to that game. But Glenn, before I share mine, I want to get your thoughts on which factions you think suit themselves best to, and then kind of the audience participation part of the issue here. I want you to go ahead and throw out other games that you want us to toss around and see what factions may work best in that game. Like I was thinking about Zweihander earlier and kind of which ones would work best with kind of that sort of like kind of Germanic heavy combat type system. Anyway, that's good to say. The rat-based RPG, which is a ton of fun anyway. But I want which factions you think would work well with that system.
So great question. And
I throw out the ones that I think first? If you
that's okay.
think about it.
I've got a couple ideas.
I've got a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
But one of the things you got to remember is we're not kidding. All of these factions could be in some form shifted to work in any genre, just about any time period, and we're going to give advice and guidance on how to make that happen. So this is a fun challenge. But keep in mind that what that does mean is we're going to paint a picture as we describe the faction, but then we're going to give advice on how it could be shifted to other genres and other directions. So in this instance, the first one that pops into my mind with a small modification would be the Pause of Prophecy, because I'm confident that there's at least a couple of rabbits out there that would have some form of a divine sense or ability to see the future if you've got any kind of mystical element going on in your campaign. And the Pause of Providence could very much impact that world as they move around, nudging events to ensure, their future comes to pass, whether that means I've never played this game before, so I'm running off of rabbits a little bit as I say, whether that's ensuring a fantastic carrot harvest or ensuring that the entire crop gets wiped out.
Just
The paws of
nudging with their cute
providence
little
could
twiddly noses.
definitely stick their twitchy little noses and their fluffy little tails into just about everything.
The paws of providence.
Excellent.
I love it. I love it.
I do
That's
like that a
hysterical.
lot. I think there's a number of things that you could kind of go with, but I have to go with the Thunderswarm because I'm going to go back to something we did. I think year one might have been year two, but
it was when the Haragon came out.
When the Haragon came out, I'm going to go back to
that UA.
To the thought of a horde, a whole I forget the group word for rabbits.
It's like a barbarian tribe is what we.
But a whole tribe of rabbits at the top of the hill, just thumping their hind feet as they get ready to to defend the warren against the evil farm oppressors. I'm thinking more like an Animal Farm situation. The pigs are coming. But it's all of a sudden the Thunderswarm rabbits come to town to help all the other animals defeat the pigs. Because if you're gonna do a game and you're gonna throw rabbits and animals at it, why not throw some Orwell into the mix? But I think that would be amazing.
So I have to say, so Dave Rideout and I are on exactly the same page. I will show his comment here. So his comment is talking about Gran as an ancient fox in the rabbit wilderness. The Warp and the Weft was exactly the faction that I was thinking about for rabbits, because thinking about rabbit spies and like fixers and everything that are in secret league with some sort of like forest ag, it was exactly what I was thinking about. So Dave, nice to see that you and I are on the same page here, reading our minds again, as I went to say, because that was exactly the one that I thought of, was the Warp and the Weft.
Yeah, and the Warp and the Weft honestly is one of the most versatile, because what world wouldn't have an organization of spies and fixers? If it's got organized crime of any form, the Warp and the Weft can be behind it. So that is one of the most universal.
Yep, because I also thought that it would work well with the Outriders actually too, right? Having the rabbits as the Outriders, where they're the ones that are ranging ahead to go ahead, and then there's of course like all the commonality with Commonwealth records of rabbits and bards. I mean, is that kind of is there some sort of like shared DNA between those two? I think that there could be some joking in there. So yeah, I think that there are several that could kind of work on this one. So.
Right, and they may not all work
when
in
you
the
say
same
the warp
world,
and the
but necessarily.
When you say the warp and Weft, I immediately think against the Dark Master. I can't possibly think of, when you're setting up your ancient evil or your or whatever. I can't possibly think of an organization that's more everywhere and in the tendrils of the society that the people are railing against than Gran. I think that would be insidiously fun. Is probably the best way to describe
kind
it.
of like a darker version. What was the what's the name of the wizard that wasn't Gandalf, wasn't
Saruman.
Wasn't Saruman?
The Brown?
No, it wasn't
I don't
Saruman. The
remember
other
their
one,
first name,
the
but were they the Brown?
Was it Radagast? No.
Radagast, yes, Radagast.
We're talking about in the books, not the
Brown,
movies,
exactly.
right?
So, right. So Radagast the Brown, kind of so like an evil version of Radagast. I can picture like Gran as an equivalent to Radagast on some level, where it's kind of like maliciously, because Radagast was just kind of like chaotic, right? He was not really good or bad. Where Gandalf was clearly good, Saruman was clearly bad, eventually. But Radagast was kind of like that chaotic
neutral.
influence.
He was just like very much nature focused.
Yeah. I kind of attributed the three of them to in the World of Darkness system, the werewolf, the Guru had kind of the worm tainted, the weaver tainted, and had the wild, which is kind of the chaotic spirit in the middle. I think that would be that's kind of how I pictured them. And so that's kind of where I see the Warp and the Weft. Okay, so Dave Ridout clearly swinging for the fences tonight here. So talking about the Warp and the Weft and Babies and Broadswords. So if you're not familiar with Babies and Broadswords was a game. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is a combination of like Dungeons and Dragons and like the Rugrats cartoon, where you play
cross between
babies
Muppet
in
Babies
an orphanage.
and the Rugrats.
Yeah, exactly right. So a tremendously fun system. First of all, a tremendously fun game. Just thematically had a lot of fun. And I can see Gran being like the benevolent, like or pseudo benevolent runner of the orphanage. That kind of thing, and other children being her little spies or her little birds. To go ahead and steal a phrase from Game of Thrones or something like that.
Little birds would be good.
Yep, I think that would be hysterical. I think that could be really good. See, what else for babies and broadswords? I think babies and broadswords would also lend itself to.
You start bringing like some imagination stories and like the Backyardigans, etc., to babies and broadswords, and you could totally rock a nautical campaign involving the Order of the Ivory
Sure.
Compass.
Yep.
I think
I could totally see kind of like a Pippi Longstocks style type story. Yeah.
Right.
I think Commonwealth Records could work. Where the babies are just trying to find out, where people came from or whose parents are where or whatever. Like, they're trying to get all this extra information that the orphanage has that they're not telling the babies. I could definitely see
and the Soul Society too, kind of like a young Indiana Jones concept, like an Indiana Jones as a baby, like kind of thing, like with the fedora and the like a blanket as a whip, sort of
but
thing.
Not
I can totally see that working.
But not shy.
You could rock the Ember
Right,
Weavers. You could rock the Ember Weavers and babies and broadswords too, and make the Ember Weavy babies be the ones that can figure out all the technology. Like they can make the toaster work.
Yep. Exactly. They know how to turn
or
knobs.
Motorized mop bucket.
we would have gotten down that hallway faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you haven't listened to it, we did an AP where the creator of the game came in and ran it for us, that you can find in our backlog. That was so much fun to play, and you can get an idea what that game is like.
Yeah.
But it was a hoot. It was a riot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, when I first heard about it,
absolutely.
I was like, babies and broadswords. I'm really not sure D&D should meet Rapper Room. I wasn't really one of my lines and veils, depending on how it's done, is violence against children in games.
Sure.
So it immediately tweaked things for me a little bit. But I'm like, but they're doing it comedy style, and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was just an absolute ton of fun. Great stuff. So what other systems have we been playing around with lately? Like, I know, Glenn, you've been looking a lot into like Lumen and Kids on Bikes and stuff like that. What kind of speaks to you about those systems? Like, where do you think one of those could go ahead and fit?
I've never looked at Kids on Bikes, but Lumen has so many worlds in it that you could literally use every single one of our factions. But the one that I looked at the most, Nova, which was the game that it came off of, Nova is very much like a dark post-apocalyptic world where the sun exploded and shards of the sun are literally embedded in the earth, and those are the only bright, warm spots left. And when you leave, so humanity clusters around them, and anybody who dips off into the darkness, going after old technology or resources, they put themselves at risk because apparently there's chunks of the moon out there too. I don't need to get into the whole game, but the style of the game very much is a blend of magic and technology. So it smacks of the Ember Weavers 100%. Like the Ember Weavers would have been the people figuring out how to tap into the sun shards to power this new society that everybody's creating.
Sure, yeah.
They are a world where there's some prophecies and things coming from a group of people that worship the moon shards. So the Hands of Providence could easily work their way into this world.
Yep.
The Warp and the Weft, Gran could be hiding in any number of forms out in the darkness near, say, a moon shard to draw power from, while manipulating events and creatures and information in the warm societies. I'm going to be honest, I don't think we have one except the Order of the Ivory Compass, because I don't think there's any oceans left. But I think every one of them except
the futuristic Ivory Compass don't have to be oceans though. Like they don't have to be, like they're basically merchant marines, right? So I've kind of been been thinking about, because they're the next one. I've pretty much finished writing the Ember Weavers in alpha version at this point, and so the Ivory Compass is the next one up for me. And so I've been thinking about how to go ahead and kind of translate that. And I'm we're not focusing on Wizard of the Coast products, but I'm thinking through kind of like a Spelljammer kind of like mindset where it's like, you're spell jamming around, but you need a protective unit or something like that. Like that would be the Ivory Compass. or you are spelljamming around and you get attacked by space pirates. Like that could also be the Ivory Compass, right? So like they could also be members of the Ivory Compass, because that's kind of, I'm trying not to make every faction that I write kind of have this like duality path to them, because the Ember Weavers definitely did, where it's kind of, there are Ember Weavers that work for good and Ember Weavers that don't. And so I'm trying to decide which way the Ivory Compass is going to go, whether it's like started good and then became bad, or was always bad and kind of stayed bad, or whatever. Just kind of like, so I can make that throughput a little bit smoother and a little bit better.
I like
But
the idea,
at the end of the day, go ahead.
just to kibitz off of that for a hot second, I like the idea of
Yeah.
the Order of the Ivory Compass being a mixed bag. Because with the exception of a number of captains, they may be members of the order, but except for a number of captains that unite under one, admiral or what have you,
Sure, yeah.
each captain is kind of an island unto themselves. So some of them could be,
Right.
straight up chaotic good, mostly just taking care of people, and some of them could be just one hair's breadth away from being full pirates. It just depends on who's watching.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly right. Kind of going on the whole like historical idea of how like privateers were really pirates, but they were pirates that had government sanction, right? So they got
Right.
away with a lot of things because they were doing it under the flag of the king or whatever like that. So yeah. But I'll have to go ahead and say that like I can see like spelljamming around and then getting approached by like a space pirate ship that is flying the banner of the Ivory Compass, or operating under the Ivory Compass, and then kind of, so then like if your spelljamming helmsman is an Ivory Compass and the pirate ship is an Ivory Compass, like how does that parlay play out, right? Do the Ivory Compass have a like internal honor among thieves where they won't steal from each other, sort of thing, right? If you know the secret handshake, then you're good, that kind of thing. And they will, are there kind of like social rules of conduct that members of the Ivory Compass kind of extend to one another, that maybe they extend to people that are not of Ivory Compass and stuff like that. So I think that's a particularly interesting angle. But
right. Well, and the other game that I've been learning at the moment is powered by the Apocalypse Monster of the Week, which is like
Monster of the Week. That's what I'm thinking.
Predominantly influenced by Supernatural with the Winchesters, but it also smacks of Buffy and any other, like the dark world exists behind, and most mortals aren't aware of it, but you're one of the few who know and fight to protect everybody, yada yada yada. And literally every faction we've got could blend into that. I mean, Guardians of the Grave would just be a militarized, organized force of hunters that focuses on Commonwealth records. The kind of records that they would probably be looking for in this world might be more paranormally based. They might be more chasing lore about monsters and how to defeat them for the good of the Commonwealth.
Yeah. But I could definitely see the Soul Society specifically looking for the ancient artifacts to fight these evils. Like if there's a given monster and that they can be taken out by some kind of ancient poultice, but the recipe is found in the Mesopotamian etching, Soul Society would definitely be the type of folks that would be going to get that. And awesome.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I mean, Hands of Providence, like Castiel could have been a member of the Hands of Providence.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hang on one second. Peter, was that Monster of the Week first season? Was that just a table game, or was that a live play or actual play that you were part of as well?
Yes, if that's an AP, I'd love to go listen to it, because I haven't taken my Monster of the Week skills to the group yet. I'm still learning the game, and I'm about to do some family experimentation. But in the meantime, I'm listening to Monster of the Week APs. So yeah, throw the details in there if it's listen toable.
Yep.
But cool. Yeah. So I mean, definitely, any number of those would work really, really well. I can certainly think of Traveler, and I know Dave brought this up in one of our recent episodes where he joined us backstage for one of our recording sessions, as our patrons will be having the ability to do more and more frequently. But I remember him mentioning the fact that Traveler really works well with the Ivory Compass, and pretty much any spacefaring game would definitely do that. But when he mentioned Traveler, I started thinking back to some of those old Traveler games. Though I played less Traveler proper, and I played more GURPS Traveler. That's actually what I'm more familiar with. But
Yep.
the same thing.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I got
I
you.
mean,
Thank you. Peter. Yeah, we do the same thing with some of our games as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So
But
we've been doing a lot of
yeah.
Star Trek Adventures also, and I can think like
Mhm.
Ivory Compass as kind of a like, you know, I can see like the Orions being really influenced by members of the Ivory Compass. I can see you know, any of these kind of like I'm thinking of the Next Generation episode where Picard was like kidnapped by the pirate ship there and had to pretend to be one of the pirates because they were looking for artifacts and stuff like that and trying to like infiltrate them a little bit. Like I can see that being kind of like an
So
Ivory Compass
I
inspired group. You know,
see
I can see
what
that
I
Soul
thought
Society
of.
also too, actually.
Yeah. So the Soul Society, Vosh, and as she was played
Yeah.
out in Lower Decks and in TNG, perfect. Like that is them. Period. Go places, find ancient stuff, bring it to people for whatever reason. But when I was thinking the Ivory Compass in Star Trek, I was thinking more of a new organization where you take somebody who, like from Bajor or something like that, so somebody who still has an economy. They're not a post scarcity economy just yet, and they may have people who are from all over the Alpha quadrants and parts of the Beta quadrants. Maybe there are a couple. Ferengi or Klingons or whatever within the organization, but literally they would be a group that that would handle those types of missions. So I could see a Federation starship just running into them, and you know, one episode they're at odds, like they're trying to get a thing before the Federation gets a thing. The next time you meet them, you know, the following season, they're working together because they're both trying to save this place from whatever danger it is, to for whatever reason. And maybe the Ivory Compass folks are in trouble and they've sent up a mayday, and the Federation comes to the rescue. Or flip those scales. Maybe it's a Federation that's in a bad way, and the Ivory Compass is there and says, "Okay, we'll rescue you." And now you're just building up that relationship. They would be perfect recurring characters in a multi-season Star Trek Adventures campaign.
Nice. Yeah.
So Star Trek in
I think that
particular
there's a lot of kind of options there. Yeah.
was super easy for me
Yeah.
to make a transition for, because Kai Wen is the leader of the Hands of Providence already, serving the prophecy of the Bajoran prophets that live inside the wormhole, and trying to
Yep.
bring about Cisco as the, what was he called?
Emissary.
Emissary. Thank you.
Actually, she's more accurately a follower of the Power Wraiths. But yeah, I see where you're going.
She was definitely interfering with things from government to Starfleet to all things political, trying to bring her agenda to pass. That was totally the Hands of Prophecy.
Hands of Providence, right?
Providence,
Yes.
my bad.
Yeah. I was like, haha. So I just want to make sure we didn't change the name again. Like that's, you know, so
Not this time. Give me another week.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You know, hey, nothing's final until the book comes out. We're good. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so
like
as a superhero game, yeah, totally.
Replete with efforts for a superhero game. I think of something like when I think of the Teen Titans, I think of Roy Harper as being a perfect member of the Outriders League. I think of Nightwing being a member of the Outriders, Damian Wayne. Like they handle all those types of things. So like and typically when I play Supers games, I tend to lean Titans esque because that's, well, hello. That this is Leonika and he loves the Titans, but you know, absolutely that like just jumps right out at you as far as good options. And again, the Thundersworn, could you imagine, very similar to the basic concepts of the Marvel movie The Eternals, but let's just play a Supers game. How about a group of aliens come to Earth because Earth is in great danger? So while they're fighting in the early levels of your campaign, while they're dealing with relatively mundane or local or regional threats, they're there because they know something big is coming. or they know these are emissaries of a greater evil that's coming to them. So they're here to help. So I can definitely see a team of heroes being members of the Thunderswarm. That could actually be their name. I mean, that would make an awesome comic book superhero team name.
Yep. Yeah, I think that with the Supers game in particular, the lines between organizations that were heroically aligned versus not heroically aligned, I think would be much, much clearer in a Supers game, at least in kind of like my interpretation of comic books, right? Like, I know that there's gray area sometimes between what is good and what is bad, and that tends to be mostly on like the main characters that are having some sort of attack of conscience or something like that. Like they start to fall a little bit too close to the line, step over the line, and then they have redemption arcs and stuff like that. But I think as an organization goes, I think about like an organization, say like the Guardians of the Grave, for example, right? I think that as they would be presented in a Supers game, I'm not sure that they would have much subtlety or gray area, right? I think that they would be perceived as either wholly with the main characters or wholly against the main characters for some reason or another. And so I think we're kind of viewing a lot of these factions as kind of having some gray area. Like Guardians of the Grave is a good one. The Ember Weavers have some gray area. The Ivory Compass is going to have some gray area. The Outriders can certainly have some gray area depending on kind of like whether they're big on like the frontier justice kind of aspect of them or not. And so thinking about like how they're being perceived to the main characters, I think it'd be a lot more stark in the Supers game. Yeah. And again, I mean, like I'm not the resident comic book guy, so maybe I'm not totally on base here, but that's kind of the way that I perceive it.
So I think that you've got groups like for the Guardians of the Grave. I definitely think characters like Blade, any of the Midnight Suns characters could fall under that aspect, with the possible exception of the ones who are actually dead. What's interesting is I think there are some characters in Marvel comics in that range that would have some issues with the Guardians of the Grave as is. But
Blade couldn't be a Guardian of the Grave.
They wouldn't accept him. No, the
Guardian. No, they wouldn't accept him. They would be against him.
Yeah.
And same thing with Ghost Rider. Most of the Midnight Suns would actually, because they are monsters.
They would actually, even though they're usually on the side of good.
Yep, they would be against.
The Grave would hunt down even good heroes that were related to undeath.
Yeah, so they would. That would be a situation where the Guardians of the Grave would definitely fall into the antagonist section of your story. They might be
the go either way depending on which plot, depending on your plot line.
Yeah, but like I said, if you're playing Blade, if you're playing the Midnight Suns, let's say you want to do fast rep and you're playing the Midnight Suns, Guardians of the Grave in your game have to be the antagonist, because all of the Midnight Suns are part monster. Whether you're Morbius, Blade, Ghost Rider, Dan Ketch, Johnny Blaze, or the later one, and I cannot remember his name for the life of me, with a car. All of them would be enemies of the Guardians of the Grave, so they would end up fighting them. But you could also have organizations like the Warp and the Weft as Hydra. And the way that Hydra operates. So you could play a game that is S.H.I.E.L.D., and again, you have this great antagonist organization. And if you didn't want to play in the Marvel universe, that could be the kind of game you play, and you can play that Supers game. And honestly, if you're playing Everyday Heroes, and I'm going to toot the horn of a game that I am loving and want to get into playing very soon, I would say Everyday Heroes would be the perfect way to run that, because there's a lot of different books from various movie properties that are coming out. So you can borrow some different abilities, powers, feats, things like that to get what you need to get a good super story. But you literally have them against an organization like the Warp and the Weft, and now you've got those lower street level heroes against an organization run by Grand, and that could be run by a supernatural type of entity. But all of her operations are much more mundane. It is her sending armies of security guys, thugs, street gangs, drug dealers, drug lords, big bosses, megacorps. She's got armies of these people, random evil news organizations that print and publish bad info.
Yeah,
Murdoch.
I am totally seeing the character played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus there as an aspect of Grand. What was her name?
Val.
Val, thank
Val.
you. Yes, I can see her as an aspect of Grand again, kind of like manipulating heroes into doing things that were not necessarily heroic. You know, that I see that.
Right.
I
And
see that.
that's
I do love the fact that your Mountain Dew catches your green screen, Lewanika, so that when you drink it, it just looks like it doesn't look like it looks like this.
Yeah,
Because it catches
it's kind of cool.
your background. That's kind of funny. Yeah. Anyway.
that's funny.
Oh,
That is
live.
funny. But with
You'd
Gran
almost
and
think I planned it.
the Warp and the Weft, they're not going to have much of a standing army. She might have a few soldiers kicking around, but what she's going to have is leverage on somebody who has an army.
Exactly. It's manipulating Blackthorn security company. Like, she's got it in on their person, who then takes the ones that he can trust to do the dirty missions and sends that group from them out there. The whole organization may not be bad, but she's got incels within those organizations to go handle business. I think there's so many great things that come from that in that avenue. And I can spring this on live, because I have talked about it with the guys, but though we're not making specific promises, because Everyday Heroes is 5e. The types of things that we want to be able to do in a modern era style game is vast, and and those things are coming in the future. I know that Everyday Heroes is just released information that they're going to have their Urban Arcana book come out. They just opened up a Facebook group earlier this week, as well as their military book, which are 2024 releases. I believe both of them are scheduled for, or talked about for. Nothing is scheduled at this point. And I am on both of those pages, and I chat with folks over there a lot. So we are ready to take and adapt once those games are fully up and running. We'll be doing that. We've got to play some of the game system as is, so we know how to best do that. But it won't be long before we're moving into some of those other avenues. So we'll have a lot more of the factions you see that are coming out in this book. And the Traveler's Guide to Factions is the start. It's not the end of factions for us by any means. This has infinite possibilities and probabilities.
Yeah. All right, cool. So let me dive into the second question that kind of came up. Again, I was talking to somebody about kind of content of the book. It was one of the folks that is he asked for some preliminary material so he could go ahead and write a review of it. That's going to be coming out in a few days. And he was reading through some of the test material, and he was really taken with some of the combinations of factions, some of the overlap between them. Specifically, he was talking about a group like the Outriders, which can have an espionage angle, and the Warp and the Weft, which has an espionage angle. He was also talking about Commonwealth Records and the Soul Society, which both kind of have that like recording of history, archaeological kind of bent to them also.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And he was asking about whether about how we're going to be positioning them, and especially if we get to the Adventure Starters chapter, the Adventure Starters stretch goal, rather, asking how we're going to position them. Are we going to position them antagonistically to each other? Because he could see a through line where Commonwealth Records, with their sort of everything must be recorded and known, and the Soul Society angle, which is more everything must be found and contained is the wrong word, but possessed. Everything must be found and possessed.
Preserved.
Right?
Possessed. Preserved and possessed.
Preserved.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, preserved and possessed. So like he could see the goals of those kind of being at odds with one another. And so I wanted to know if you guys saw any other kind of combinations of factions that may play out interestingly as we go on.
I absolutely saw a combination there, and one of the ideas I had in my head was an Indiana Jones style game where, and there's really two or three ways I saw this happening. One way is a standard game where the players are playing on one side. They're either hired by one organization or the other to get X MacGuffin, and then their antagonist along the way is the other side of that. So it doesn't matter which one. And neither way is that an evil or good. It's just a different goal, right? Now, and then it's up to the individual characters as to what they're willing to do to get it. Are they out to thwart the other side? Are they out to harm the other side? Are they out to kill the other side? Or are they out to just delay the other side? Or are they going to try to convince them to see their way? There's a whole bunch of different ways, which really breaks down to how that game gets run at an individual table. And I think that's really good for story potential. That's one way I saw it happening. The other way was the quote unquote secret game. And while it's a little harder to navigate at a table, generally would require a more advanced storyteller or DM, and certainly players of some experience that are willing to go along for this kind of ride, where you can have a party where it's one party set to do a thing, but now everybody has their own goals within. So you might have one player that's a part of one organization, one player that's part of another organization, and they don't tell each other what they're there to do. They are there to get the thing because the king may want the thing because the king wants it. The Soul Society wants to go get it, but needs the help of this big group to help him get there. But once they get it and get back to safety, he's going to abscond with it. The Commonwealth Records, they're going to do the same thing, but for a different purpose. They want it to be recorded and put in place, and as long as and they may want the king to have it as well, as long as they get access to it, or it may be something that they need to bring to the vault. So in any that can kind of go a couple different ways, but then what they do in the game becomes interesting, and I think that works best as a one shot. You go to a convention, you do a convention game, you have different people with different missions or parts of those different missions. You could have somebody playing an outrider who's really the scout for the group, so they get to do outrider things. You have the common or the ivory compass, because maybe it involves a sea voyage, so they're there for that purpose. When they go ashore, it's like,
sure, yeah,
my job's to see you guys to safety. I better go along just to make sure, kind of thing. You know,
totally, yeah.
You know, and so you can literally start bringing in all these things, and all the while, maybe they're going through this area that somebody from the Warp and the Weft is aware of, and their goal is to go into a secret room that exists within this temple, having nothing to do with anybody else's thing, but that could unleash a great evil, which could put everybody in jeopardy, or something like that, because they have their own goal that has nothing to do with anybody else's. So you literally set up that one thing that would be that you set up one mission overall, but everybody has a different goal within that one mission. I think that would be a really fun thing to kind of put together. Those are the two big thoughts that I have for intermixing the different factions.
I love the Soul Society and the Ivory Compass working together as kind of that. I'm transporting a thing and I need a protection racket. I think that's fantastic. How about you? Excuse me. How about you, Glenn? What do you see?
So I love this question. And part of the reason I love this question is because one of the questions I was planning on bringing to the two of you in our next business meeting was whether or not we should add a section in each faction about how it would relate to the other factions in the book.
Yes.
So I was already thinking along these lines. Nothing major, just a short blurb saying they'd be allied with. They may be allies with these, etc.
Yep.
But sure, no, there's rife. It's rife with possibilities, and it all depends on the story you're telling. When I glance at it, one of the ones that popped into my mind the most was the Outriders League being hired to do the preliminary scouting runs for a government that's looking to expand into a wilderness area, and the Thundersworn trying to protect the barbarian people that already live there.
Yes.
I mean, it all depends on the story, and you could find ways to make most of them, even if they wouldn't be allies, work together for now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if they might be enemies later. And I think that there's a lot of meat on that bone if we kind of dig into it. And I really like the concept of maybe thinking about that as we're working on our adventure starters. I don't want to try to write one that includes like 3 or 4 at a time.
Oh, totally.
If we're writing an adventure starter for the Order of the Ivory Compass, and based on the adventure starter we're writing, we think another faction would have a stake in it.
Yeah.
I totally think it could be cool to write a secondary faction into that adventure starter.
Right. Oh yeah. Like I would love to say that when I came up with this image to go ahead and start some of the promotional stuff that we were doing, that I had that exact idea in mind, and I was like, oh yeah, no, there's totally going to be connections. And clearly there's some like secret embed logic within the layout of the star and the lines that connect to the factions. No, there is no order. This was done absolutely, totally, 100% randomly. I'd love to say that I was that far ahead, but the more that I've been thinking about this concept and even kind of the way that it laid out, I found really interesting parallels. Like I'm thinking like the connection between the warp and the weft and the hands of Providence, right? The hands of Providence are trying to go ahead and do that push and pull on future to protect their particular vision. And I can see Grand just absolutely dying to F with that, right? Like,
I guarantee you,
if she got
has the people placed inside their organization.
Oh, totally, yeah, exactly. Things like the connection
all of them
between the Outriders and the Thundersworn, right? Like, are the Outriders and the Thundersworn, are they more aligned, or are they kind of antagonistic? Does the Thundersworn see them as like an incursion from kind of a different way of life into their way, that kind of thing? So where are the connections in there? So so what's this favorite system of mutants, masterminds, savage worlds? Yeah, traveler. And someone is responsible for getting me big into Star Trek adventures. Yeah, like you can totally blame Lee Winika for that. I would love to go ahead and say that was a team effort. That's all Lee Winika's fault because he did it to us before he did it to you, Dave. So
right, every one of these would work great in Deadlands too, with small trappings changes. Just since you brought that one up.
Totally, yeah.
Which is another game I'm planning to learn to run. I just haven't gotten to that one yet. I'm still playing Savage Worlds to learn the system.
Yeah. I mean, the Emberweavers are stolen straight from Wild Wild West. That is absolutely kind of where their inspiration came from, as far as like that weird West, kind of technological West kind of aspect to them. And then they just kind of like shot out in both directions at light speed sort of thing. So, that's absolutely kind of where their influence was. So, but yeah, absolutely blame Lee Winika for the whole Star Trek thing. Like that is, he did it virtually without either of us knowing. It just kind of one day we were playing Star Trek. It was amazing. It was kind of I'm joking. I'm joking.
It exploded in like 3 months, and I'm like, wait, what happened? Yeah, it was crazy.
What happened here? Yeah. So,
but on connections, I do like.
I'm not gonna lie, it was a plot.
Between Ivory Compass and Commonwealth Records, Dave.
Yep. Totally. Again, from that whole like protection racket. Yeah.
I can also see Ivory Compass and Emberweavers working together as the Emberweavers work to help advance technology on the ship and come up with new ways to improve nautical transport, whether it be souping up cannons or coming up with, automatic gizmos to raise and lower sails and make the cruise job easier.
And I can see Captain engineer.
Right? Yeah. I can see like a captain who is an Ivory Compass. Kind of hating and loving his Emberweaver engineer, kind of like, I can see the captain being very sort of like, I'm not going to complain, like Scotty and Emberweaver versus Captain Kirk as an Ivory Compass. Like I can kind of see like that dynamic being like I love what you do and you're kind of a pain in my ass, but I still love what you do. So just go down into your engineering room with your gigantic wrench and do what you're going to do, but don't come on my bridge.
And just to cross genre our projects a little bit, every captain of the Ivory Compass should have their Emberweaver advisor on one side and their Windfinder advisor on the other.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Well, I absolutely was thinking more of a Captain Mal and Kaylee on Firefly. Like I really see that dynamic, but I also see the Ivory Compass captain having like an Outrider squad of Marines.
Oh yeah,
on board. Totally. Like when they sail in through the islands or whatever, and they hit a bad spot, I definitely see. Okay, here we are. Here's this Soul Society or Commonwealth Records envoy that I'm supposed to deliver to such a place. We've got you to the beachhead. Now you guys have to cross the island with this person to get them to the place where they need to go, and then that be the adventure. Like there's a whole number of things that really, really works well with. So yeah, there's absolutely a lot of blending between the factions, and yet they can also be on their own. And what I love about them is the fact that you could play a whole party of a given faction, or you could simply play one. That's just your character. Your character's a part of that faction, and you're doing whatever mission you go to. So you could set up campaigns based on this, or you could just play characters from this in other campaigns, and it works pretty seamlessly.
Totally. Cool. So what other questions do you guys have? What's been breaking you up? The campaign right now is about 36 hours old. Like you said earlier, we just crossed over 50%, so we're in really great position to have a have a great weekend and bring this thing home and start going ahead and hammering out stretch goals. But what struck you guys kind of with the writing on this? What are you seeing, and what's kind of inspiring you right now?
What's inspiring me now that we have our templates in place, now that we have a great deal of our principal writing done, and our stretch goals are identified and laid out as far as what they might be, is really just the nuances. Like, it's writing in some of those interesting lore bits to flesh them out. I was thinking about our interview with the AARPG podcast, and I mentioned in that interview I talked about the story of Stone Soup and how I like that. And then I got to thinking about that more and more, and I'm like, I need to write that into the Thunder Sworn, where that's something. So I'm thinking that might be a big ritual that they have when they agree to help. When they come in to help a community, that's one of the things they do. Like, that's how they get everybody involved, is they start a big pot of stone soup. And the idea is all the members of the community are part of this, because they're not only just here to fight the bad guy for you, they're there to help you learn how to defend and fight for yourself. They're there to support you in fighting for your own freedoms, right? So part
Like
of
the
that is
A-Team.
bringing a community. Yeah, like the A-Team, but part of that is bringing that community together. So I thought, what a great ritual that doesn't have any mechanical weight per se, though it could. You could have it provide some advantages, perhaps a bonus inspiration, a re-roll, depending on your game system or what have you. But what a great narrative ritual for the Thundersworn to have is that Stone Soup ritual, where the night before whatever the big battle is, they gather the people together and the community in this one big communal meal or what have you.
I can totally see that.
Right.
They're making stone soup, and at the very end of it, they're finishing it off by putting a little bit of like shredded Roquefort cheese on top of it. Roquefort cheese,
Yeah.
And somebody chimes in with, I pity the fool that don't bring no ingredients for the stone soup.
Yep. And I was thinking that one of the coolest things, and again, not because it has mechanical weight, is that each of these large groupings or clans of the Thunderswarm would have a pot that was made from the original, from something in the original village. So it'd be the pot that was blessed by Anarch Hammerfist, or the wooden spoons or paddles that they stir the soups with are actually from the palisades that Anarch Hammerfist helped make, or something like that.
These magical wooden spoons. I don't know why that's making me laugh. These magical wooden spoons. I'm enamored with this. That's hysterical. So
yeah. But but something like that.
I need to go back and rewrite Anric's history to include the chef feat, though there weren't.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But like, because they are more of a familial, tribal clan type of organization, something like that, like a communal meal, anything to bring together, I think works really well for them. And I think I think that's the kind of thing that I'm jazzed by. I'm looking to now add some of those community elements to that particular faction so that they really stand out. These are the
and that one is a community-oriented faction, so that makes total sense for them, because they're going in to aid a community, not just to study it, not just to manipulate it, but to help it. That makes great sense for them. Dave, for your question on tools for building your own factions, we got a little bit of an answer there, but it's still in progress. And I say that because we did a lot of research before we started writing, because one of the things we learned during our last project is if the three of us go off and write in isolation without a template or a pre-plan, that everything that comes back will still be great, but it will all have to be completely rewritten so that it fits together and matches. So we did a lot of research first, and we worked hard on coming up with what we felt were the essential pieces to breathe life into a faction and help it become fully like 3-dimensional in your world once you introduce it. And that's what we're writing based off of. But that chapter itself is the last chapter we're going to write because we're still learning lessons as we go through that template, and as we try to come up with, you know, the information to fill that section of it for each of the factions. It might change. We might learn, whoa, we were way off base with this. This is going to be a tiny little section, but this got giant. So we're not actually putting hard instructions into that chapter until we've finished learning our lessons on building them ourselves. But it's going to include, you know, the solid guidelines and template that we come up with and finalize, and places you can find inspiration for ideas, faction building questions to ask yourself to help you flesh it out, and things like that.
I can see us adding roll tables all to go ahead and even
be a roll table or
for
two.
a lot of these categories, you know, because I mean, if you've taken a look at any of the template documents, you'll see that there are I could probably go ahead and pull up the template anyway here, but there are a variety of categories about that factions that are going to be in the chapter. You know, one of them is, you know, we're talking about writing them to be playable from a variety of time periods. That's not necessarily, if you're building your own faction, that's not necessarily something that you need to go ahead and do, because you just need to go ahead and write it for the time period that you're currently playing in. So that might be slightly different in terms of like the instructions on how to go ahead and build one versus the ones that we're filling out. But yeah, it's going to be heavy on questions, going to be heavy on probing questions, open-ended type questions. And I can see us building a lot of roll tables to go ahead and help you in certain things too along the way here. And, you know, Glenn said, hate to go ahead and say it's going to have a reading list. You're going to have to do homework. Yeah. Idea tables. I like idea tables. Yeah. But there's going to be a recommended
I roll on
reading
them, but most of the time I pick.
Yeah. One of the things that Josh mentioned in one of our conversations earlier this week, might have even been today or yesterday, that I had been tossing around in my head is we would probably develop some form of PDF form fillable character sheet for the factions. Likely, based on what we're seeing, that's probably going to be a 2-pager, front, back, whatever. But the idea being, there's going to be a few things that are fairly statistically based, or just fill in so that information is there. Name of the faction, you know, how old they are, and how old they are won't be like 20 years, 30 years. That'll be more like recent, anything between 10 and 50 years, you know. Old, anything between 50 and 200 years. Ancient, anything beyond 500 years. Like, we'll have to figure out how that actually works. And of course, the level, or the base level where we're setting things at, is the high fantasy mark. So effectively, fantasy fiction, what you find in worlds like Greyhawk, Farron, Pathfinder, Galaran, that type of thing. But as you use your faction in other games, game systems, time periods, that'll change some of those stats, so that sheet won't be the same necessarily for every time period you play in. But we'll have those things figured out. So a good table that will have numbers in case you want to roll, because you want to do things random, or that'll just have the suggestions there so you can pick things based on what you want. So the idea is to have, you know, a simple format that gives you the title and then explainers for that thing. So it'll fit on a character sheet, but you've got the deeper information when you have the book itself, is really the goal for that. And we'll have a lot more details as time goes. Backers will probably get updates as we get things, like many other Kickstarters. Once they've funded, you'll find some things might come out a little early. I could see something like a character sheet coming out, you know, a month and a half in versus when the full PDF comes out, something like that. I'm not making promises on specific time frames. Josh shakes his head when they start saying things like this. But there are things that could happen there.
Sounds like a strong maybe based on Josh's reaction in the other camera. but I totally get what you're saying. And it doesn't have to be anything big, but like a preview. I hear what you're saying. Like when I finish, if I finish statting Gran, because she's probably going to get statted in the Warp and the Weft with the backstory, like hey, preview. It may come out if we have time to make it finished enough and get it done and not make Josh's head explode.
That's pretty easy to do though. My head is like predisposed to exploding. So
that's why you always got steam coming out your ears.
It's fair. That's fair. That's where I wear the big barrel headphones to go ahead and keep all the smart steam in. I work in IT. Yeah. When you let the magic smoke out of things, they stop working. Like that's
right. You can't put the smoke back in.
No, you can't put the smoke back in, and that's what makes all these things work. So, yeah.
Fair.
Cool. So, what other questions do you folks out in the audience have for us that you'd like to go ahead and have us answer? We've been yammering on here for about an hour. Or what other questions do you guys have for us? We'll riff a little bit while you guys think about that. Let's see. Do I have any other? I think. Yeah, exactly. Exploding head syndrome. Right. Peter, I have a 9-month-old, so like I'm in any stage of exhaustion for any number of reasons between at any given time. So
he has a 9-month-old, a full-time job, this full-time job, and a full-time job business that he works with his wife. His head is always ready to explode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm a busy dude. Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think if I think I've probably played at some point or another all of the cool videos stuff that we've done. I've got some of the older ones I could while you guys are thinking I could play another one. Let's see. I go to a blast from the past here. Let me show
I
this
did
one.
like
just
the one, and I replayed it at the
kill some time
beginning, but just to give you some kudos, I really like the one that you came up with that included each of us when we did a small blurb on each faction, where that was great.
Oh, yeah, that's the one that's the one on the Kickstarter page. And there's actually, so just to kind of let everybody else know also, is that as the campaign goes on here, there are longer blurbs from that episode where all of us are kind of talking about the factions. And so each faction is going to get its own video also to kind of reveal more about its particular faction in nice digestible chunks. So you don't have to listen to the entire hour-long episode. But yeah, I appreciate that. Let's see. I'll play one of my favorites here. Let's see here. Let's see. This one was one of my favorites.
Time,
the very first one.
Like a sunrise, slowly pours over everything. It fills the gaps between what is and what will be. It stretches its tendrils further and further with each moment. Battle lines will be drawn through the ages. Will you see the eyes of those who oppose you? Will you pick your allies well?
That part there, the most faction video I think I saw this entire time. Yep. And I just love the brass comes in right there. I will say, I hope you won't mind me saying this. My wife was not a fan of this image at all. She thought that it was very dark and foreboding, very ominous.
I've gotten that's creepy from a couple of people, but I like it.
It was creepy, which was perfect. Like it was like.
I thought it is a great image for factions. I think. Yeah. It works really, really well for a piece of what we're talking about. I think our overall book cover, which is behind me and mostly out of view, is a better representation of the project as a whole. But I definitely see that element. Like I could see a coven of the Soul Society, clearly the Warp and Weft, more operating like that, certainly in a more modern Cthulhu-esque style game.
Yeah, exactly. Very
that cover right there is much more indicative because it gives the image of whether that's a sunset or a city burning. Who knows? But it's there,
right?
Like it
might
could
be a city burning at sunset.
It to be. Yeah, it could be a city burning at sunset. But the fact that there's somebody out there just kind of watching it all happen,
just watching,
that I just love that element. Like it just really puts factions into perspective. They are this big thing that the audience are watching. You can be a part of it. You just have to step forward to be a part of it.
Yeah. I kind of
that
wondered
kind
if
of
the
thing.
guy down in the corner there was the traveler, right? Because so a lot of our books are named, or at least written auspiciously by the traveler, right? You know, the Traveler's Guide to Covenant World Building, Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse, you know, all that sort of Traveler's Guide to Factions. Now, I mean, I wondered if the guy staring down there was the traveler, and was he just watching and observing and recording what's going on? Did he participate in some way, or I mean, who knows? I mean, it's kind of an enigmatic, shadowy figure there, and so I that character kind of was very kind of inspiring, and I loved like the mystery. There's so much for an image that is kind of again, it kind of has some foreboding element to it, but there's a lot of mystery in this picture about what's actually going on. It really just a phenomenal job by Alex Walter, the artist that we had that did the cover. He did a handful of the sigils that are inside the book also, and he did the cover art, and just a phenomenal job. And when if we're being totally honest, when he first talked about, like, you know, the city, and it has like all these elements, and then there's like a sword in the background, and, you know, the three of us were kind of like, I don't see it. I'm not sure I get it. Like, because he'd sent like kind of a variety of sketches, like, well, I want like this plus this and that kind of thing, and we're like, tell you what, can you like do like a mock-up so we can see it? Because we're not grokking what you're buying here. And then he sent us this, and it was like, no,
we were in at that point.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
We're in.
Yeah. there was no doubt. There was no turning back. That was the whole damn show.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, you know, so yeah, very happy with that. That was a lot of fun. And, you know, and honestly, can I say too that, like, you know, we worked with an artist for the last book, and we were working with more artists this time, and man, we got, I don't want to say lucky, because that kind of implies that, like, I don't know, that there was like luck involved here, but like the artists that we worked with for this book, they were all phenomenal to work with. Otavio, Mateus, and then Alex, they were all really, really great. You know, we were talking earlier about how like a Kickstarter takes an army, right? Between just their professionalism and coming to us, and you know, just working with us, because we are a small shop, we're on a budget, you know, and so like being able to work with us, like, we want to work on this project, the project seems cool, you know, and kind of like, how can we kind of layer this so that we can afford to go ahead and pay them what they're worth and pay them what they're asking for. You know, that kind of thing was really important to us, but also just like, you know, the fact that like I didn't have to lean on them. I never had to ask them like, hey, you know, a deadline has passed, when are we getting our stuff? Like, they were very, very communicative, which was super important, because that meant I didn't have to worry about it, right? Like, as kind of like, because I'm as the one that's kind of handling a lot of like the product management on the background, like the thing that I hate more than anything else is having to chase after people, and so like not having to chase after the artists and just having them like drop us like art, like friggin' amazing art every other day or whatever. It was just like, it was so much fun to go ahead and watch. It's like, oh my god, you got to go see what they did for the Gardens of the Grave, or oh my god, you got to go see the Ivory Compass, or, you know, they were super receptive to feedback. They were really awesome to work with.
Lucky was an okay word to use, because I mean, 3 brand new business relationships with no idea how they're going to go, and they've been pretty seamless. You can call that lucky, absolutely, to not have any headaches or hiccups along the way. I'm very pleased with everything they've sent us, and
yeah,
I could easily get into my philosophical beliefs about the word luck and how that operates. I won't take this particular opportunity to do so.
Yeah, we don't have that much time. This is not the forum for that. Put your soapbox away.
But I will say that since we've been in the content creation business and the podcast business for the last 3 years, we had tried a number of avenues to get assistants and team members brought in by different means. And this has, without any hesitation, been the most productive, satisfying, and successful collaboration with folks we have contracted / commissioned for work. And I think we're not alone in that. I think anybody who's been in this part of the industry doing these things has probably had a horror story from some service or another, or something that went wrong. And I can say with
And I'm sure we'll have
all
one
sincere,
eventually.
well, we've already had them, but I can say with with all sincerity that this was such a great experience. We'll continue to talk about these artists. We'll continue to support these artists. I don't envision a situation where, unless we're asking something that's completely outside of one of their styles, we're not asking them back in some capacity or another for future Tabletop Journeys products
Right.
I mean, even
projects.
beyond that, our very first stretch goal for this campaign, so we're
It's more
$3,000
art.
goal on the campaign. The very first stretch goal at $4,000 is all art, and that $1,000 is going all to art if we hit it. Like a lot of times, like with stretch goals and things like that, it's like, we're gonna have like $1,000 stretch goal, $500 for art, $500 to go ahead and keep the campaign funded. That's not the way we're doing that one. Like there are some which are very much to go ahead for us to go ahead and put back into the business, but the art stretch goal, that $1,000 that we will earn if we make it up to the $4,000 stretch goal, goes to the art.
Right.
And
So we don't
I can
have as
totally
much
see a
stock.
situation where exactly right.
Yep.
Because we work really, really hard to curate really good stock art for these books.
Right.
Pretty good at it by now. Like this is book number 4. We've done this for a while. We're pretty good at that. This book in particular, we wanted to make sure that there was a very clean kind of unified art style, which meant doing a lot more research and finding a lot more kind of like specific artists that we can go ahead and draw from. And we want to work with the 3 artists that we've already pinged to go ahead and do more art for the book. So we're really, really hopeful that we hit that stretch goal in particular.
So, talking about the art, I did want to mention kind of like our process on this book, which was a bit different. Once we decided the idea was to have a more cohesive art style for the book as a whole, one of the things we did is we spent a lot of time with our stock art services, and we found art that we kind of liked that was leaning in the direction we wanted to go. Then we went out and found artists in there that were doing those specific pieces. Then we asked those artists, those are the folks that we brought in. So we had scoured hundreds and hundreds of pieces of art to bring it down to 5 or 6 folks. And then we narrowed that down to these 3 artists. And then we approached them with offers to have them join us on this project and commission their work. So there was a definitive and dedicated plan to get the right people who do the right things at the right time. And then it was timing and a lot of moving pieces and puzzles. We had to finish a certain amount of pre-work before we could actually hire them, because then we had to say, here's what we're doing. Do you think you can do this style? What do you think you can bring to this? And then we had to figure out who's going to do which pieces, that type of thing. And so we had done a lot of that work in June, July. Actually, a lot of the photo looking and searching was in May. So we've been working on the art direction of this book since May. We've been probably writing a lot of the writing on this has been being worked on in pieces and parts since also April, May of this past year. A few pieces were actually done well before that, but we've been at this for a while. And one of the things that we're very proud of is how well this is going to look, and the art. And I'm very proud of that process that we put together and the team of artists that we've brought to you.
Agreed. Yeah, we've thought more about the layout, like the characteristic of the layout of this book and the way that it's going to look when you crack it open. We've thought more of that ahead of time than in any other project that we've done. A lot of times that's kind of an afterthought. And we've thought way more about it ahead of time. And that part of this because we're doing physical books this time around, right? Because we are going to have to get them printed. There were some things that we needed to learn as a group about how to do a printed book. Printed books are just different than PDF. PDF copies, you can get away with a lot of things in a book that's not going to be printed on actual paper by actual printing companies. When you start getting into that area, you have to worry about a lot more. And so we had to learn some things, which has been great. But it also means that we had to think about a lot of the stuff a lot more than we did. We had to think about it a lot more ahead of time. So.
Absolutely.
Cool. Whew. All right, gentlemen. Well, I I think that is about it. Looks like we've gone through all the questions here, so looks like that is about it for this evening. Any final words before we go?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. Thank you for all our backers as a whole. And I
Yeah.
did want to throw out a little homework for all of you, and that is talk to your local game stores. We made a point of doing physical books this time because we want local game stores to not see Kickstarter and certainly not see Tabletop Journeys and what we provide for content as a threat to their business model. I sense that game stores get a little worried about a lot of digital products and the way that works and impacts their business. So what I want is to get the word out to as many game stores as possible that this is a flagship store, a local game store friendly Kickstarter. We have a retailers tier that we think is very reasonable as far as pricing for a retail operation. The quantities are reasonable as far as the number of physical books that would come with that. And as is stated on the Kickstarter page, anybody who buys one of the books from a retailer will also have access to the PDF. Will provide the retailers the ability to connect their customers with us on that for that. So this is something that's designed to help local game stores. So we want to get that word out there. Obviously, we live in a place where we touch a few game stores, so we're talking to them. I did a convention with another game store. I've been speaking with them, but we don't talk to as many game stores as there are people. So with all the backers that have already backed, if all of you kind of go out there and talk to one of your game stores, show them our video, throw it up on their Facebook page if they allow that kind of thing, not to be spammy, but to say, hey, this is a game store friendly Kickstarter, and they'd love for you to check this out, put this on your shelves. It'll help promote gaming in your shop.
Yep. Totally agree. Yeah.
Well said.
All right, Glenn, how about you, sir?
Final thoughts. Well, I think that we've definitely got our work cut out for us, but I'm excited to continue working on it and see how far we go into our stretch goals. Because I mean, since we launched, it's been exciting just to watch and to sit on the edge of my seat and wait. And and you got those first few hours where it just keeps going up and up and up. And then as you start to slow down at the end of that, you just keep riding that wave. You're like, but thank you very much to everyone that came tonight and everyone who has backed so far, and everyone that's going to back in the future that isn't listening to this tonight. Hey, thank you in advance, because it means so much to us that our fans and those that are new to Tabletop Journeys and taking a chance on us. Thank you very much, Peter. I mean, it means so much that you guys put your faith in us and spend your time on us, because that's even more valuable than your money. So it means the world that this little bit of fun that we do, despite the fact that it does cause some headaches, actually has reach and makes a difference. And that's just very humbling, and I love it.
Yeah. I think what you said is perfect. So I think, let's thank you very much, Peter. You appreciate that. Like, we look forward to seeing it grow also. So, spread the word, help us get it out there. And, we've had a couple of backers actually since the stream began here. So we're up at 52% now. So cruising right along. Last time we finished our campaign at about 72 hours. Within 72 hours, our campaign was funded. Almost exactly. It took almost exactly 3 days for it to fund last time. We are very much on pace with that campaign now. And that campaign was significantly smaller than this one. So we're in really, really great shape. And just I think with some consolidated effort over the weekend here, we may be able to go ahead and bring it home so that Monday we can start talking about stretch goals. So
Love it.
All right, everybody. Have a great night. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy. Hope you enjoyed. And we'll talk to you again soon. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night, all.
Later.